How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new Star Wars Battlefront 2 video. And in this video we're going to be comparing Battlefront 2 2005 to the current Battlefront 2 2017. So as most of you will know, I did do a video a few weeks ago comparing Battlefront 2 2017 to Battlefront 2015. And since then, a lot of you guys have been requesting that I compare the two Battlefront 2 games, as I think at least now they are both widely regarded as the best two Battlefront games. Obviously though, that is subjective. Now, we all know what an amazing game Battlefront 2 2005 was, and we, or at least most of us, know just how far Battlefront 2 2017 has come since its release. And it is now, for a lot of people, the best Battlefront game. So in this video, I'm going to put these two amazing games head to head to hopefully determine which of the two is the superior one. Now, I'm going to take into account things like gameplay, heroes, game modes, maps, the campaign, and all of that good stuff. Now, I think there's going to be people that, scoff at this comparison, and I agree that EA Battlefront 2 at launch wasn't even worthy of being in the same category as its 2005 predecessor. But obviously, a lot has changed, and the outlook on EA Battlefront 2 has done a complete 180, and for a lot of people, it has actually surpassed the OG Battlefront 2, like I said. So this video is just a bit of fun, guys, so don't take it too seriously. These are two amazing games at the end of the day. So anyway, kickstarting this video off, let's talk game modes. So EA's Battlefront 2 has a fairly decent amount of game modes, although a lot of them have kind of been forgotten about, whether that's by players or by the game's developers themselves, with its Starfighter modes being scarcely populated and some of its smaller game modes being near impossible to find a match. I'd say only about 5 or so of Battlefront 2's 10 online modes are easy to find games in. Obviously though, that is depending on your server region and platform. Now, Battlefront 2 2005 has some of the more iconic game modes in the Battlefront franchise. You can get really freaky with this game playing the hunt modes with various factions. I still personally enjoy going to Hoth and playing as Wampers. I still can't believe that's actually in the game, and it makes me so happy that it is. Now, EA's Battlefront 2 did try to emulate the amazing hunt modes of the previous Battlefront games with Ewok Hunt. Now, the atmosphere and immersion that you get from being in first person in the darkness with nothing more than your blaster and your flashlight was really fun. But in my opinion, it doesn't really compare to the fun of the original Battlefront 2. Now, if they did use this sort of concept in a snowstorm on Hoth in the new Battlefront 2 being hunted by Wampers, then we'd be talking. But the hunt modes of Battlefront 2 2005 for me come out on top here. Whether it's hunt modes as Wampers, Ewoks, Tusken Raiders, Geonosians, it comes out on top for me. Now, both games have the ability to play heroes versus villains. Now, I personally think they are both just as fun as one another, but where the two games really separate themselves in terms of game modes is the famous and super popular Galactic Conquest mode from Battlefront 2 2005. This is the game mode that basically every able-minded human being would love to see in the new Battlefront 2, as it is iconic. It's large in scale and it is stupidly fun. Now, EA Battlefront 2 has tried to somewhat emulate Galactic Conquest with Capital Supremacy, but realistically it is so far away from Galactic Conquest. Whilst Capital Supremacy is fun in its own right, it just doesn't hold a candle to the amazing game mode from its 2005 predecessor. Now, granted, bringing a game mode of this scale into a modern game with modern graphics and processing power wouldn't be an easy task. When it comes to Galactic Conquest and Capital Supremacy, this is the way I like to think about it. I like to think of Capital Supremacy as sort of a light version of Galactic Conquest. It's basically the best way to explain it. You could just do so much more with Galactic Conquest, and Capital Supremacy's biggest problem is its limitations. But I mean, it is still fun. So the point for game modes here obviously has to go to 2005's Battlefront 2. So now moving on, let's talk about gameplay. Now, let's be real, 2005's Battlefront 2 has not aged all that well. But there are still some elements of the gameplay that just feel really nice and smooth. But there is a lot that either comes off as aged or just kind of weird, which is through no fault of the game. It is 15 years old now, I keep forgetting it's 2020. Battlefront 2 on the other hand, the only thing that holds its gameplay back is bugs. If Battlefront 2 didn't have so many bugs, it would be one of the best games to play for its gameplay alone. Now let's compare the hero gameplay specifically. Now I think EA's Battlefront 2 has come a long way since even its 2015 predecessor. The lightsaber combat is much more fluent and at times looks really good. As for the hero abilities, I'd say about 90% of them look and play amazing, with some of the more satisfying abilities just being timelessly fun to do, like Darth Vader's Force Choke or Darth Maul's acrobatic spin attacks, or even Luke Skywalker's Repulse or General Grievous's Unrelenting Advance. Like, they are all really satisfying to use and very well animated. And they make you feel like a Jedi, a Sith, or a screeching cyborg. It's just a lot of fun. Now, as for its 2005 predecessor, I wish that I could say the same. After all, the game's hero gameplay, I don't personally think it's aged all that well, although it is still a lot of fun. The goofiness and aged gameplay is almost half the charm. But for me, the hero gameplay in Battlefront 2 2005 was just limited by its time. And as all sequels or successors should, it's been greatly improved on since then. The same goes for Starfighters and infantry gameplay as well. I think the Starfighter gameplay actually holds up fairly well, and the infantry gameplay, whilst obviously out of date, is still very solid. But yeah, like I said, a game's successor should always improve on the gameplay, and the 12-year gap between the two games means that despite the charm and fun of 2005's Battlefront 2's gameplay, I just have to give the point for gameplay to EA's Battlefront 2. So now let's move on to the heroes themselves, one of the biggest ones in this video. So Battlefront 2 2005 obviously didn't have the option to add heroes like Kylo Ren, Rey, and the likes of those characters, as the game came out 10 years before those characters even existed in canon. So there was less of a choice for a spread of heroes like what we have in EA's Battlefront 2, which obviously has the choice of adding a ton of new characters that have come to Star Wars since the mid-2000s. So for an overall spread of heroes across Star Wars canon, EA's Battlefront 2 is obviously the better choice for more diverse heroes across all eras of Star Wars. But Battlefront 2 2005 gets some serious credit here when it comes to its heroes, as this game has more obscure Jedi heroes like Ki-Adi-Mundi, Mace Windu, and Kit Fisto, and even other heroes like Jango Fett and Asajj Ventress. She was made available through some Xbox Live strange little patch. So it would be fair to say that at launch between these two games, Battlefront 2 2005 probably had the superior hero roster. But EA's Battlefront 2 has the new sequel heroes being Kylo Ren, Rey, Captain Phasma, and Finn, with BB-8 and BB-9E coming in a few weeks' time at the time of recording this video. Now also, 4 of the popular heroes that helped make Battlefront 2 2005's hero roster so great, being Anakin Skywalker, General Grievous, Count Dooku, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, have since been added to Battlefront 2 2017. So realistically, the only thing EA's Battlefront 2 is missing in regards to heroes are the likes of Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Jango Fett, and of course Asajj Ventress and Kit Fisto. But overall, EA's Battlefront 2 in its current state in 2020 has more heroes with more along the way. So although I love the hero roster, I think EA Battlefront 2's roster is more saturated with characters from all eras of Star Wars. From Anakin Skywalker to Kylo Ren to even Bossk, like even he is in the new Battlefront games. But I'm still remaining lenient to Battlefront 2 2005 here when it comes to the heroes. They obviously, like I said, didn't have the choice of sequel heroes to expand the roster. And because of that, they got to exhaust more options from the Clone Wars era, so we got Mace Windu and the likes. So when it comes to heroes, this is honestly really hard to decide. I do think that when it comes to heroes, there are strong arguments as to why each of these two games is superior to the other, but I simply can't pick a winner here. So I'm just going to go and give a point to both games for the heroes. But now moving on to the campaign. So both games featured a campaign that some people loved and some people didn't feel too great about. EA Battlefront 2's campaign featured a story told through the perspective of the Empire through Iden Versio, a member of the Empire's Inferno Squad, which starts off right where Return of the Jedi leaves off with the destruction of the second Death Star. and concludes at the Battle of Jakku with a DLC that concluded the story of the campaign's characters further down the line. As for Battlefront 2 2005, it featured a story following the 501st Legion as you do battle against the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and eventually leads to aiding Darth Vader in his attempts to crush the Rebel Alliance. So both of these campaigns have an extremely interesting premise on paper. However, one of these campaigns completely destroyed its interesting premise almost immediately. And anyone who played EA's Battlefront 2 will know that that is the campaign that done it. EA Battlefront 2's campaign was marketed as you playing from the perspective of the Empire, which was a great premise and was really interesting when it was playing out. But 3 missions into the campaign, it falls into predictable and cliche territory and you defect and turn to the rebellion, basically destroying the number one thing that made the campaign interesting. From there, it became a generic linear Star Wars experience that helped bridge the gap between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. And because the story is officially Star Wars canon, that's what kept a lot of people interested. Now, credit where credit is due, the campaign from EA's Battlefront 2 featured amazing cutscenes that were always great to watch. But the predictability and dismissal of its amazing premise was too much for people to ignore. Now, some people like this campaign, and that's fair enough, but it has been widely criticized for good reason. So when it comes to the two campaigns, Battlefront 2 2005 just done it better. Playing as the 501st, the most famous Legion of clone troopers, and going through all of these scenarios and missions was great and it was always fun. Whilst it wasn't quite perfect, it still easily gets the edge over its 2017 successor in my opinion. So when it comes to the campaign, Battlefront 2 2005 takes the point here. But now moving on, let's talk about the maps. So the difference between the maps of these two games is pretty big, although some of the maps do share some similarities. Now I do think that DICE took a little bit of inspiration from Battlefront 2 2005 to put into their game, and of course that can only be a good thing. But at the same time, some of the maps are totally different as some things simply can't be replicated. So EA's Battlefront 2 has a lot of the mainstream maps in the game, even with some more obscure ones like Felucia making their way into the game. But there are just, however, more iconic planets and locations that are not in the game, like Coruscant, Mustafar, and Dagobah, just to name a few. Now, all of these that I just mentioned are in Battlefront 2 2005. That's why I believe that Battlefront 2 2005 is a Clone Wars fanboy's dream. You've even got the likes of Megiddo and Utapau in there as well, but I think the one map that really does make all the difference in the world is Coruscant's Jedi Temple map. That is something EA's Battlefront 2 is sorely missing, and you have to go play its predecessor to enjoy it, which I don't think that's the way it should be. Now, both games with their maps are great for immersing yourself into the Star Wars universe, and EA's Battlefront 2 obviously has the more immersive maps of the two games because the graphics are obviously top of the line and in my opinion some of the best graphics in gaming. Like EA Battlefront 2's maps, they are just jaw-droppingly good, whilst Battlefront 2 2005 maps graphics have aged a fair bit. But if you are playing the game at a good resolution on like an updated version, Battlefront 2 2005 actually does look pretty damn good. But I think the map variety of more Clone Wars planets and even planets like Dagobah from the original trilogy helps give Battlefront 2 2005 the edge over its successor. So the final point for maps goes to Battlefront 2 2005. So that obviously leaves Battlefront 2 2005 as the superior Battlefront game, at least when I break it down like this. Now both games, like I said, have very strong claims to be the best Battlefront game and for good reason. And I think if EA's Battlefront 2 keeps going the way it's going, I honestly think it's going to be a widespread notion that it is the best Battlefront game ever made. But it does, in my opinion, still need a little bit more work with its map variety, and I think they need to expand capital supremacy a little bit more so it's a little grander in scale. But I think that the fact that we can even say that EA's Battlefront 2 is in the same category as the near masterpiece from 2005 is a massive credit to the game's developers and the game's players, who have stuck with the game over the past 2 years for it to perform a complete 180 and become an amazing game that any Star Wars fan can have a ton of fun playing. It's honestly pretty crazy, and it's rightly one of the biggest gaming comebacks of all time. So although it didn't take out the win in this video, take nothing away from Battlefront 2 2017. It is a great game, and it's quickly chasing Battlefront 2 2005. But that is of course just my opinion. Be sure to let me know yours in the comments below. Obviously, this video was just a bit of fun, and I love both of these games, so let's keep it civil down there. After all, we were just really celebrating 2 amazing games here in this video. So guys, if you did go on to enjoy this video, then be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. But with that being said, that is going to do it for this video, so thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you all again next time.